about 2007. It allows more people to receive services. It allows us to not have any kind of a waiting list for those day service needs that people have. We also have a capacity for emergencies that we plan for every year. We review those to make sure that there's no other funding available, but we plan for a certain number of people needing waivers each year where we can't find another way to meet their needs. And then we have been working through what we call the Waiting List Initiative Project over the last 3 to 4 years now, where we've looked at our waiting list and who meets some of our priority groups, and I'll talk a little bit about those too. And we're trying to enroll people before they're an emergency. However, our waiting list is pretty lengthy, not unlike the rest of the state. So we have, I want to say, I'm not sure what the current number is, but we're up around 1,000 people on the waiting list or more. It's a lot of folks on the waiting list. So we have to manage our funds in order to provide the services that are most needed. Once we go to somebody and say, we would like you to enroll on a waiver, or somebody comes to us and maybe they meet that emergency status, there are some basic Medicaid and state qualifications that a person has to meet. So they have to meet the basic Medicaid tenets, which are funding under $1,500 in their checking account, savings accounts. They can't have a lot of money in their bank account, regular Medicaid eligibility. They have to also be disabled, and that's another tenet. On our side of things, we have the intermediate care facility level of care, which the SSAs do the review for that, and we have to prove that the individual has a disability and that they have some limitations that require the waiver to assist with. So we have to have those two pieces. We've had people throughout the years where maybe they don't meet one or the other parts of waiver enrollment criteria, and then we can't do enrollment. So the waiting list. How does somebody get on the waiting list? There's a few different ways to get there. Again, our waiting list is already pretty lengthy, but anybody can go into the local Medicaid or JFS office and ask to be placed on the waiting list. So we know that there are some people on our waiting list who might not intend to be there, but they're there because they asked to be on every waiver waiting list. But you can do that. If you have a service and support administrator assigned to you, they can help you fill out the necessary paperwork to be added if you're not already on the waiting list, if you're an individual that needs the waiver. Or we have an administrative assistant who actually oversees that list, and she can help people get the paperwork done to be placed on the list. Once you're on the list, your date of being added, the individual's date of being added remains their date. So even if they're enrolled on one type of waiver, if we go back and look, odds are they were also on a different waiting list for the other waiver. So they might get a level 1, but they were also added to an IO waiting list, and they still have a date from 2004 for that. That date stays your date, and that's how we manage that waiting list. We look at it by the date and by priority groups to see who's there. If you are on the waiting list, or person you're guardian for, or somebody that you help take care of, you should get an annual mailing every year that tells you about your place on the waiting list and asks you to give any updates. If for some reason you think that maybe your son or daughter should be on the waiting list and you're not getting that mailing, you might want to check with our administrative assistant. Her information is at the back of this PowerPoint to find out if the name is truly there, if the person's truly on there. When did you think they were added? And we can
just got my list, my name for my son today. If we don't get that or we forget to mail that in, what happens at that point?
If you don't mail it back in, the person stays on the waiting list.
Okay.
We don't remove anybody unless they ask to be removed or they're enrolled on that waiver type.
Okay, that was my concern if I didn't get the letter or I didn't mail it in.
Right. No, that's part of why I think our waiting list is pretty lengthy, because we send these letters out and people move and don't send it back. We don't take them off. We leave people there unless we really know that they want to be removed. And that's part of the rule. We're not allowed to just say, you didn't return your letter, so we're taking you off the list. So yes, he would stay there even if you didn't send it back. So I mentioned the priority groups. You have a date that is the date that we use to manage. And many times people will get their waiting list letter and it says your date is 2004 and your number, does it have a number still?
Yes.
Because I haven't seen one of those for a while.
Not very close.
Yeah, your number 578 or something on the list. What I can tell you from doing this for quite a while is that your number on the list isn't really indicative of when you could expect to receive a waiver, because we're not really Ohio hasn't been in a place where we can just go down the waiting list and give out waivers based on numbers. So what we do is organize based on priority groups. We have emergency status, which I'll talk about in and of itself here in a minute. We have aging caregiver, which is caregiver over 60. Adult services refinancing, that is somebody who would be going to a day service site that we're paying for. We have supported living refinancing, which is some old terminology, but basically that would be if we were paying for residential services out of county board funds. We have adults and children with intense needs, and that's also defined by rules. So there's some pretty strict criteria for what intense needs is. And when we send out that mailing, what we're asking is, do you have any of these priority groups? Do you have an aging caregiver? Do you think you have intense needs? Are you attending a day site? And we want to know who's on those, because I mentioned that we're using adult service refinance priority group to get waivers. When we did that waiting list project, we were looking at people who had intense needs and an aging caregiver. This next year, we're going to try to look at it without any priority groups in mind and just start at number 1 and go down, but it won't take us long to get people off the waiting list to meet the amount of money that we have. So we want to organize that way so that we know who's waiting for waivers.
Intense needs, does that mean behavioral needs, medical needs? Like the intensity of their disability?
Right. We ask that on the mailing because we want to hear from families. Do you believe that this is something that your individual might be in a priority group for? The rule actually has 4 different areas of intense needs. One is behavioral / psychiatric, and it actually requires a certain diagnosis and medication. One is medical, which involves life support. I don't know that we've ever had anybody actually enroll on based on that one. There's one that is intense needs with needing support in many different areas. And there's one more that's slipping my mind right now, but it's rule-based. It's not, we don't get to decide that this person has intense needs and this person doesn't. Right. The emergency capacity comes up quite a bit, where we have individuals and families come to us throughout the year and say, I have this situation where I need help caring for my son or daughter. The rule-based definition is actually in the second bullet here, and that is that there's an imminent risk of harm to the individual or somebody else if action isn't taken within 30 days. So we really we review these weekly when the requests come in, to look at what can we do to mitigate that risk, and do we need to enroll on a waiver? Are there other ways that we can meet the need? But that's actually the rule-based definition for emergency. Do you guys have any more questions about the waiting list, enrollment process, before I get into each waiver type? I feel like I'm really rushing. No? Okay. So the individual options waiver is one of the waivers that is able to provide more substantial funding to folks. We do an assessment every year of these individuals called the Ohio Developmental Disabilities Profile, and it gives us a range of funding that's individualized for how much money somebody can have to spend on their services. And then listed below are just some of the different types of services available. So homemaker personal care is that kind of daily support in an individual's home, whether it's in a family home, in a group or congregate setting, or maybe in their own independent housing. It's that daily activities support that they can receive. Transportation is also available. You're also able to receive some assistance with home modifications. Maybe that's bathroom modifications, ramps, handrails, things like that. And then there's a big list of a bunch of other kinds of supports that you can receive. And the ones I talked about are the main ones, but a lot of times people might need some interpreter service. You can get that on the waiver. We have some other services available, like adult foster care, where somebody might actually live with their provider and receive service. There's handbooks along the back there for each one of these waivers, where it will talk about all the services available and explain what they are. So if you want to look more at what each one has, you can certainly pick up one of those. For the individual options waiver, we do what's called an acuity assessment to help us determine the budget and the staffing for an individual's day service. So that helps us know how much staff they need at day service and how much funding is available for that. And there's also a budget amount for their transportation to and from work. I mentioned that we use the level 1 for our adult services enrollment, our day service refinance. We do that because unlike the IO where we could have different costs for everybody, with the level 1, everybody gets the same amount of HBC. They get up to $5,000 a year for HBC, transportation. They have some respite available, but we know what the cost is going to be for each of those. It makes it easier for us to plan for those individuals throughout the year. There's also some money available on a rotating basis to do home delivered meals and modifications, some of those extra kinds of things. And then we also have some money available for emergencies that might come up for somebody. These individuals get the same day service package. We do the same acuity assessment and they get the same day service and transportation to and from work that the IO waiver folks get.
Is that the same from county to county, or is this Stark County?
No, the services on the waiver are the same from county to county. And I didn't mention this, but you can take your waiver to any county and use it for services. You can't take it out of the state, but you can take it to any other county in Ohio. And we have folks here who live here and maybe they get a day service in Summit County. So you can actually go to an adjoining county. I'm not going to talk really about the TDD waiver.
Could you define day services? Is that going to workshop, or is that going out and working at an enclave, or what is a day service?
It could be a multitude of things. I don't know. Are you guys going to talk at all about that? A little bit? Okay. They're going to talk a little bit more about that.
Or primarily, what would you say primarily the waivers serve what age range?
It can serve any range of people. Now, I can tell you that generally speaking, across counties, you're gonna find more adults enrolled on waivers than children. And that's probably, it's not uncommon to have fewer children in a county enrolled than adults, because the adults are needing it to be more independent, to go to work, to kind of get started with their lives, so, yeah. But it can be any age.
Can a person live in Summit County but come to take programs in Stark County
Yeah.
and have a provider in Stark County?
Yes. You can, it doesn't matter where you live, you can use your waiver in different counties. That requires some coordination between the county boards and the provider, but yes.
In regards to the costs, the Medicare, are they given a, just like a normal person, a Medicare or Medicaid, a contract with them, and, or are you paying for every 40% of everything that Medicaid covers?
We're paying for 40% of the waiver services under Medicaid. So the waiver Medicaid services. So we're not paying 40% of their doctor's visits. We're paying 40% of the staffing for their day service, their home service, their transportation, but not their other Medicaid services.
Medicines or anything like
No.
that? That
We
is
don't,
not-
we don't pay the match on that.
Thank you.
On the different waivers, can you indicate the hours for the different waivers?
I think what you're asking, like the hours somebody could receive?
Yes.
Okay. The IO waiver, I can't really do that because it's gonna be different for everybody. It's based on the range of funding that they are allowed based on their needs. For the level one, there's $5,000 available per span, which is a year. And if somebody was getting one-on-one, which would be one staff to one individual, it's about 4.5 hours a week and 100 miles a month of one-to-one service, which would be maybe somebody comes and takes someone out in the community once a week or helps them do tasks at home. Some of our families don't use it on a weekly basis and save it up for a whole week to have staffing for a whole week, so it just kind of depends. We're gonna kind of slide over TDD only to say that we received oversight of TDD about 2.5 years ago. It's kind of a derivative of the home care waiver. Folks are much more medically fragile and medically intense, and all of these waivers are transitioning to other DD waivers in the next 1.5 years. So they're going to be moving to IO level 1 or south by 27. The South waiver is our newest waiver. We're moving on up as far as having some folks enrolled on this. We have 9 people enrolled on this waiver as of last week. The South is broken up into a pot of money for kids that would be on a South waiver and a pot of money for adults. And you can tell that the children have up to $25,000 a year and the adults up to $40,000. The difference is that the adults, it includes their day service costs, whereas a child wouldn't have that. It is obviously meant to be more self-directed. You'll notice that they have to be able to help choose their services. They have to take fiscal responsibility for their services or have somebody that can help them do that. You'll notice you don't see HPC, that homemaker personal care, up here. What you see is community inclusion. It is meant to help people get out into their community and be more involved. Many of our folks use the participant-directed goods and services, which helps them buy things to help them be more independent in their own setting, in their home. So we're slowly adding self-waivers, but Being that it's new, our provider base is a little smaller, and our familiarity with it is moving along. And we have more adults enrolled on this who need it to just be a little more independent in their own home. If you go to the DODE, the department's website, you can get to lots of information about waivers. The 4 handbooks that I have printed off back there, I took from that website. You have my information. Mary Lou Chismar is not here tonight, but she actually oversees Kristen, who is our administrative assistant, who oversees the waiting list.
So self-waiver, like, when I received my paper today, it says that I'm not on the self-waiver because I don't have requested. How do we get on the self-waiver?
You could add it to your paper and send it back. What I will tell you is this. A waiting list date is a waiting list date. It doesn't matter if you said, I want to be on the self, the IO, and the level 1. For instance, right now, we're being asked to look at our waiting list for enrollment, and we're looking at it strictly by date and not looking at which list you're on. And if you come up in the date, we'll assess for which one is most appropriate.
When did the self start?
The self was about 3 years ago, I want to say. I think we're going on year 3. Other waiver questions? I know we talked longer than 20 minutes. It's a lot to squeeze in.
No, I mean,
my name is Paula Kovac. I am another supervisor in the Service and Support Administration Department. And I supervise the transition SSAs. Actually, I supervise a new unit in the SSA department called the Office of Community Integration and Support.